advised. The opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to CSR. I'm attorney Sarah Jane Sugitan, standing in for Mr. Larry Bruhard in this episode. Tonight we're going to talk about super branding and maybe informing a little bit our citizenry out there because the elections are coming near. After all, I'm also with the Legal Network for Truthful Elections, so I can't help but infuse a little bit of political issues and election issues as well in this episode. Tonight we have the President and CEO of Super Brands, Mr. Harry Tambuatco, to talk about super branding and branding in the upcoming elections. Good evening, Mr. Tambuatco.
Hello, attorney. Nakakatawa, no? Ngayon, mostly ako yung host, ngayon ako ang guest. Naiiba, no?
Yes,
Bakit sanay din ako, either or?
Yes, well, I asked you to become a resource person for tonight because, well, elections are becoming near. Not only in the Philippines, in the States, they're having it next month.
Yes.
And everything is about branding, positioning, how you project yourself to the public. I think that also, branding also applies in politics,
Well,
in elections.
Well, in America, yes. I think the Philippines, it's not branding, it's called dynasty.
No, but still, you have a name, like for
Yes,
example,
it's
Barack
true,
Obama, and that's what you buy in terms of you,
Yes.
not vote buying, but you vote for
Yes.
this
Well,
brand or this name. So
Branding for people apply without question. It has a lot to do with the words like imaging, platform, positioning.
and same with goods and services. You
Yes.
also try to position which market do you want to cater to. Is it a low-end market, high-end market? How are you positioning your product or service?
Well, simply put, branding is about the ability to be able to deliver your brand promise. Whatever you promise, you're able to deliver it. Now, if your deliverables are positive, and yes, you're being able to deliver whatever that you promise, for example, your soap, it's a whitening soap. Make sure it really works and it's whitening. If it's toothpaste, it reduces, if not stops, cavity. Then it's supposed to do that. If it's supposed to be shoes, and you're buying quality shoes, but the quality you're looking for, the brand promise is, this will last you a lifetime. It better last a lifetime. So,
otherwise, people stop patronizing the product
correct.
or the service.
Exactly. If you are able to deliver your brand, the promise of whatever your product is, and deliver this with consistency, that's the most important word.
That's what branding is.
Yes.
So you have to be able
Yes.
to, first of all, the premise is you have to make a promise.
Yes.
There has to be a promise. Otherwise, there's nothing to measure.
Correct.
And then second of all, once you buy into the product or buy a
Yes.
product or buy the
Consistent.
service, it has to deliver what was promised.
With consistency, meaning you cannot fail. Cannot fail, okay? When you say consistent, when you say something, there's a promise, it needs to have a consistency. Because once you have the promise, you've delivered. And you're consistent in both. Because some brands, they will deliver, but not consistent.
Not all the time.
Yes.
By consistent, you mean not all the time.
Yes.
Meaning one point you buy it in Luzon, it's working, and besides it's
Yes,
not working,
wala.
or at, in 2010 it's better, 2011 the strength is
Like
a little
McDonald's.
diluted.
You go to the States, you go to Singapore, you go to Saudi Arabia, you come to the Philippines. The branding is consistent. It delivers with consistency what they promise to deliver. Now, once you have consistency, that means you have integrity. The minute you have integrity in your brand, then you can be called a brand, meaning the brand will now stand alone by itself.
And
You
people will know it for what it delivers.
Yes.
We have a certain expectation of the product or the
Exactly,
service or
yes.
the name, and we know that's what we're going to get when we
And
buy that product.
What people have to understand, when you're branding and you're branded, or you are a brand, the brand lives forever. It is not specifically a person. People come and go. Owners buy and sell.
Yes,
We
I agree
become
with you.
brand custodians. The brand is a standalone product and or service. So once you have a brand, you are a sheer brand custodian, even though you own the brand. You can't say, I own that brand,
You
that's
can be
mine.
the inventor of a certain
Yes.
product, but it will not matter in the long run because
Yes, it will outlive everybody.
Yes, a brand will outlive everybody. Meaning, if you've invented, for example, a toothpaste and it's still popular up until now, the toothpaste's brand, the name, will
live.
continue on
Yes.
even if the inventor has died.
Yeah,
That's what
and
you're saying.
the CEOs, the presidents, the chairman, the board directors.
They all change.
Yeah,
So
they all change over years.
It's like politics. Everybody changes.
But the brand remains the same. In America, when it comes to Barack Obama, for example, he came on with a strong
brand promise.
a brand promise
His
was
brand promise was
hope and change,
change,
which has been what has been his problem with this election. Because was he able to deliver hope and change? Now he says yes. His opponent, his contestant, will say no. Because we have problems with finance, the health care, unemployment. See, hope and change is now getting larger and larger based on the expectations or perception of what the American people want it to be. But the larger branding, that the holistic branding, when you talk of Obama, is not necessarily him. It's called the Democrats versus the Republicans because it's platform-based. Now, here in the Philippines, there is no real platform. Let's face it. It's called dynasty. Whose mother are you? Whose father? Whose brother? Whose sister? Ganun naman dito.
When it comes to local politics, it's not platform-based.
No, it's not. It's personal.
Yeah, so like in the States, they're applying branding. I mean, the brand meaning the name of Obama, of Bush, etc. And when you continue to elect them into office, then of course here the issue is that a political dynasty. The perpetuation of the name of the brand becomes a dynasty.
Yes. Here the brand exists, but
the
it's
brand
basically
exists,
dynasty.
But it's not a brand. As you said, it depends on whether you delivered your brand promise in the first place. So if, for example, your great-grandfather was elected, or we bought into the brand promise by voting him into office. It was great-grandfather already. And then by 2012, you have, descendants of the same name.
A perfect example of branding, well, it's dynasty
When it comes
as well.
to
Philippine
people.
politics. Cayetano, when the old man died, he suffered, he succumbed to leukemia, if I'm not mistaken. When the old man died, I didn't think that, if memory serves me right, the two children weren't really into national politics. They were in local. And Pia, the girl who's now the senator, was not even thinking of politics whatsoever. The opportunity arose. The brand recall of the name Cayetano and Cumbachero and all the other positioning, branding, the image that the old man created, it worked to her benefit. Now, there may have been, and I'm almost sure most of the people that voted did not know it's really a woman, but the father who actually was branding the word Cayetano. If I'm not mistaken, the very same strategy is being used by Enrile now because of his very high rating because of the Corona impeachment trial. Ang nangyari dito, yung anak niya ngayon, kung titignan mo yung karatula ng mga pangalan niya, it's Juan Ponce Enrile. Tapos yung font ng junior, talagang 1/3 lang, na maliit lang yung junior.
Yeah,
kung titignan mo, Juan Ponce Enrile, binoboto mo.
Yeah, for me, when it comes to branding and politics, you really need to have name recall. Like in 2010, those names that were on topmost of the ballot had more chances of getting more votes.
Yes, brand recall. Estrada. Ejercito, J.V. Ejercito, who's performed rather well in Congress, who was previously a mayor in San Juan. Now that he's going for the national elections, malaki kasi malawak ang voting frequencies mo dyan. You have to run like 2 million, 3 million votes. Unlike pag district ka, you're running 200, 300,000. Kung party list, same, 200,000. Pag mayor, mas maliit pa nga eh. Maybe mga 60,000, 70,000.
The
population kasi of the voters. So anong ginawa ni Ejercito? Ejercito changed his name a week before the registration, and now he calls himself Estrada. Because Estrada is the brand.
It's the one that can generate more.
Well, because the old man, the father, was a previous president, a former president. So, pag sinabi
you're capitalizing on that surname.
So they're branding with the name. Yes, it's recall. It has a lot to do with recall because it's the first top of mind name. And when people don't know what they're, the problem with our elections, because you're with the legal network for truthful elections. I've asked myself, you go into the ballot boboto ka, 20 names. Sige nga, pumasok ka. And you're looking at a name, maybe mga 800 names there. And 800 positions,
Yeah, 800
whatever.
party lists.
Paglabas mo,
So on
sino
and so
binoto mo? Yung the 12 senators binoto mo.
Yeah. Can you remember
Sino
all
ano yung mga
12?
pangalan? Let me see.
Just
I
too many
think
things
binoto
to
ko ito, pero hindi
remember.
ako sigurado. Madali yung sinong congressman mo sa lugar mo, yan, mabilis-bilis. Sinong party list mo, mabilis-bilis. Anong pangalan ng mga councilor binoto mo? 8 yan. Ilan board member binoto mo? Sino yung mga board member? Di ba?
Yeah, it's hard to recall.
Number 1, I don't even know them. Parang ganun lumalabas. So, pagdating sa recall, pag nakaupo na doon, mas lalo ng mga iba, natitense, di ba? Pagpasok
Yeah,
nila,
while voting.
boto ka na. Kakaba, name recall, yeah, okay na yan, parang ganun. So, I guess it has a lot to do with branding, yes.
Yeah, I would like to juxtapose branding for goods and services versus branding for politicians. Meaning in the sense that, as you said, in goods and services, the brand will live on far longer than the person behind, or the persons or the corporations behind it have died down, ceased to operate, etc. So the brand continues to live on, provided it still operates. But in politics, you're talking about a person or a name living on forever.
But there are very good examples of brands that whose names are continued to live on through the grandchildren. Examples: Mar Rojas, Jerry Rojas, President Rojas.
Do you have any
Recto,
examples outside of the Philippines? For example, it's a good branding example
for
for
politicians?
like persons.
Yeah, there
About,
was
for example, we have Bush, former President
J.W.
Bush,
versus
and then his father was
the
also
father,
former
H.
president.
Bush, yes.
And then their grandfather, I understand,
Was,
his grandfather is also in
well,
politics.
not president, he was Senate.
Yes, but he was also a politician.
Yes.
But,
You know,
but that's politics. How about, for example, show business or in other industries as well?
same. Hollywood, most especially. Lloyd Bridges was the guy in Sea Hunt. He was known for his action movies and his drama because of his facial contortions and his acting, just like Michael Douglas. Not Michael Douglas, the father of Michael Douglas. The father, the son, the 2 brothers, 3 brothers, even the grandchildren, they carry on.
Even Drew Barrymore, for example, her father was
yeah,
a great
another
actor,
example,
and then
yes.
was passed on to
I
her.
guess it has a lot to do with, alam mo, that's another issue about dynasty.
But yun nga,
Dito.
what I was gonna say, dynasties are well, unconstitutional.
Well,
See?
I
but
think
I don't know
it
if
is.
in other, no, you don't think it is. It is unconstitutional.
Yes, it is
But
unconstitutional.
But in other industries, these are allowed. For example,
Yeah.
as I said, you have show business and you have other industries, maybe art or
Well,
automotive industry, something like this. Maybe you will have names that will continue to
the
carry
allure
on.
of the profession of your parents and your grandparents and the exposure to the profession of your parents normally is the strongest, how do you say it, incentive to go into the same profession. Doctors, their children normally become doctors as well. Ganon din nangyayari, engineer, mga anak mo gusto rin maging inhinero. The problem is, if the top guy, the top honcho, the guy who starts it, or the father or the grandfather, is a failed doctor, is a
Yes.
failed engineer, a failed architect, or a failed politician, chances are the guy in the bottom don't want. But the difference with politics, because of the perception that it's dirty, those who are really good politicians who have made names, many of them, especially those who are not corrupt, will be the first ones to say, huwag ka mag-politiko, huwag ka papasok politiko. In fact, they force their children, they maneuver their children outside
Away.
of politics by, maging doktor ka, maging architect ka, go abroad, study being whatever. Just don't be a politician. Because alam niya what it's like. Now, if the attitude of the child, talagang the allure of the office because they're looking up to their parents, the grandparents, because of their success. Nakikita na, ang daming pera ng lolo ko, ang daming pera ng tatay ko, tsaka ang tatay ko hindi pwede inuhuli sa traffic yan, above the law yan. Sila rin gusto rin nila maging ganun. Then, that's what you call, it's not growth.
It's abuse of power.
It's abuse of
essentially.
power, and it gets worse and worse. The
And
only
that's
reason,
what happens when you perpetuate, for
Dynasties.
Example, dynasties are elected into office. If you choose to buy them through, buy the brand
Well-
promise by sponsoring, patronizing these names, then you have that situation.
I had a guest last Monday, si Attorney Alan Paglia, as you well know. And I was surprised because it's the first show that I've ever had wherein it was straight to the point. I didn't realize dynasty is already a violation. It's not even, it doesn't require legislation because it's already a policy. it's a disregard for what is already in the Constitution. It's just that lawyers are not, as Alan puts it, no one is standing up and telling the ombudsman, do your job, go after the dynasty. Because really, in the Philippines, ang dynasty sobra na eh. Sa America, imagine, you have 300 million people, you have 50 states, they have a federal system, right? No, they have a republic system. Ang federal states. Ang difference lang is, they only have 6% dynasty participating in politics. Here in the Philippines, it's a whopping 70%. And the worst part, after this election, it'll probably go up to 80, 85. I mean, look at the Senate lineup with two major political parties. They're all related. Does this mean everyone in the Philippines, pagdating sa those that have the political power, will all be family? Wala na tayong, we no longer have our freedoms, our democracy. Hindi na demokrasya ito. It's going to be an oligarchy.
Yes, I would like to ask you, what do you think are how far can political dynasties take the Philippines? I mean, what is the worst that can happen to the country, as opposed to, for example, if you have a brand product or a service that has gained a monopoly, not a dynasty, but a monopoly of the market, meaning you're the only toothpaste available or the only coffee available in the market, and you have a monopoly or the dynasty over that market. How is it different, and what is the worst that can happen in each of the markets? On one hand, of course, the body politic, and on the other hand, for example, the market, the consumers.
Well, body politic will cease to exist because the citizenry will no longer have any power. Wala nang redress. Because once you get subjugated, the dynasties turn into oligarchies, and then the oligarchies look at their people as their subjects. And what happens is they increase their power and protect themselves with the private armies they build. Now, when they were building themselves, when they were creating their dynasties, mutating into this terrible title called an oligarch, what happens is they have their little fiefdoms now. And if you look, what is the commonality during that process? It's called insatiable greed. The need for more, the want for more. Not for anything. Let's look at Estrada. He seemed like a very good mayor in the 90s. Estrada still sits in San Juan. If it wasn't for his son, it's the other person who sits there, but it's still Estrada one way or the other. It stays. The B-Nice have been known to do that. And in local government, it's all over the country. When dynasties become too powerful, the danger there is eventually, because of their insatiable appetites, it would be like pre-martial law days. A lot of people don't realize that when martial law was brought in, other than the dictatorial and absolute powers of Marcos, one of the salient points of what drove us towards a one-man rule was to calm the collateral damage the people were getting inflicted upon by the oligarchies that were shooting each other during that time. You see, I was born during that time. 72, I was into high school. I was graduating in LaSalle, and I realized during that time, nagbabarilan sila, mga malalakas na political families. And this can happen again if we don't stop it. Plus the fact...
That's the worst.
That's the worst.
Worst case scenario.
But it looks like it is unabated, and it looks like it's just going to happen some more. It looks like in this election, because these are the popular bets. These are the high-name brands and recalls. And if they win, mangyayari niyan, we don't have to call it the Senate. We just call it per family name. You know, we talk about Engaras, we talk about Cayetanos. Ganun na, ang rulers natin are no longer called senators and representatives. They're now going to be called by their family name.
What about products and services? If
Well,
they
it's the same
gain
thing.
a monopoly of the market, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well,
How far can it go?
Well, it can be a good thing. It can also be both. It can be a bad thing. But what marketers and people who have manufacturers that create products and brands do not stay with one brand that's successful. Because one brand that's successful will always relate to a specific target market. And what they do is they will create other brands to compete with the brands they already own. And that way you get a larger part of the market. For example, I know many of our brand clients who are with us who have multiple brand titles. And some, they will participate into super brands. The others, they won't. They wanted to be different. They wanted to hit a
Yeah.
different market, so to
for
speak.
for goods and services, it is better to break the monopoly. Whereas in politics, which is also a similar principle that we can apply in elections and in politics and in persons being
Well-
branded in it's better not to have a monopoly, and monopoly will always be broken by itself.
Yes.
So to speak, by the well, in the case of the market, by the market forces at play. But in politics, will there be a force like that that can break, for example, the monopoly of power that certain people hold in certain
Well,
places, certain
only if you have a
jurisdictions?
strongman rule and the insatiable, because the nice thing, there's the commonality between politics and brands and products is called insatiable appetite. If you are a manufacturer and you have a marketing firm,
You're driven by the profit
you're driven
motive.
by profits. And why not? Because that's your objective. More money, more market,
I agree.
more customers, more production, more everything.
Market dominance. et
Yes,
cetera, et
market
cetera.
dominance,
Yeah,
world power.
yeah,
You know,
more
why not?
sales,
Yes,
yes.
more sales. McDonald's did not rest in America. It went abroad. Coca-Cola, the #1 brand in the world, literally went everywhere. It even penetrated religions. It penetrated color, races. It penetrated history. It just went in.
Yes.
It's called capitalism.
And
why not?
globalization.
And globalization.
I agree.
Why not? Politics is totally different. Politics is service to the people. It's representation
There
of the
isn't
people.
supposed to be monopoly.
It
I
can't
think,
be the same
in
principles of
politics.
marketing applied. But here, all the best in the industry are being utilized with the same objective called insatiable appetite.
It becomes profit-driven.
Yes, when it shouldn't be. It's
when it
supposed to be
shouldn't
service-driven.
They create their own competition.
They
meaning
create their- yes,
they
within
pass
their
it
own
on.
family.
Yeah, they pass
Yes.
it on to their family members. Which in the long term, as opposed to the market, in politics, it's, as you said, the worst case scenario is you go back to a pre-martial law situation.
Sila
Where-
magbabarilan.
wherein human rights are repressed and
There you go.
democracy is eroded, meaning you have no more, you are deprived of any power to participate in government, which is so ironic because now it's the time of the digital age and more people are into social media. You can tweet the president and actually complain about
Oh,
something.
hang on. That's they
What was that?
they just question that. Hindi na pwede yan, di ba? Tweeting is we're now in
Libelous.
martial
Huwag
law.
kami
Buti na lang
libelous.
tinigil ng Supreme Court, no? But the government wanted to control free speech. That's what it is. And that's what I hear and read among all the contestants towards cyber law. The cyber crime, they want to make it libel, they want to make it criminal, they want to make libel criminal, and they even increased penalties to 12 years, and they wanted to give the Department of Justice a free hand in saying who's guilty and who shouldn't be guilty, and who should go to jail and who shouldn't. Now, the internet is an animal that's very difficult to control. For example, so Pilipinas, it's supposed to be media. Media owns, media is limited to Filipinos, 100% Filipino ownership. Hindi naman pwede may mga puti, foreign, ano dyan,
it
in the
cannot be foreign
Constitution.
owned.
Yeah, it cannot be foreign owned. So what happens, how do we address CNN? Di ba 100% ano yan eh? That's 100% American owned. That's 100% American content. And it's showing in our broadcast TV. Dapat yan, libel, di ba, ano yan, violation of the Constitution. These are ang daming issues, legal issues that have to be threshed out.
Yes, it tends to create an absurd situation. Definitely, that is why a lot of people are contesting the implementation
Yes,
of
that's
the
good.
law.
But you know, when you see that, when people get mad, it's not because it's a revolution. No, the people are speaking out. They're participating in their democracy. And that's good, because we are a free country, so far.
Yeah, last time I checked, we're still a democracy.
Yeah, we'll know after 2012,
We still have 3 stars in our
2013.
flag.
No,
We
I
still
think the
have 3 stars in
president,
the flag.
in his heart, will always promote the democracy. He's very strong when it comes to that. I believe that, even the people around him. But maybe pressures, lobby, interests of other people, because unfortunately he belongs to a dynasty, the president himself,
The name.
of 2 families, Cojuangco and Aquino. Kawawa naman, because both families were very strong over years because of their economic situation as well, their fortunate economic situation.
Yes, but maybe we will talk more about, well, aside from dynasties, maybe the campaign and the upcoming elections.
Yeah, that would be
and
interesting.
Also,
And how branding plays that role with
yes,
them.
exactly. And maybe we should also discuss, as you said, you've already brought it up, the cyber crime law. And I'm also interested in the sin tax and how is it going to affect consumers.
Wow, current events
Yes,
na tayo.
when we come back right here on CSR, don't go away.